All right, here we go. So, when new technology threatens your organization, don't catch up. Here are three secrets to taking back control. My name is Dr. Ed, and I'm just a geek kid who was shown mercy when he was caught cheating by his grade 7 French teacher. I grew up in the northeast hood of Calgary next to Pine Ridge, and you don't have to be a Calgarian to know why this community was nicknamed Crime Ridge. The reality is I've had to go through many shifts in my own career. Even growing up as a kid, I moved from the northeast of Calgary, where there were many Asians in my school, to basically the southwest of Calgary, where I was like one of maybe two Asians in the entire school. And then I've lived also in the northwest as well. And what I'm here to do today is I help change leaders stand out in a globally competitive market. And I was first exposed to AI, this new technology, when I had a YouTube video of my UX research go viral in 2005. And since then, I've been helping influencers and companies make their yearly income monthly and helping companies scale their business through unique positioning and viral marketing. So, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I love to talk about. And we can see these phenomenal results when influencers and companies bring diverse ideas to the decision making table. And that's especially what you need now, especially as you move towards any type of technology shifts. Like maybe in the past, you thought, hey, I'm going to work for the biggest companies out there. I'm going to have a nice, stable job, for forever. But you would be sorely mistaken if you thought that was the case. Just look at this. I'll show you the statistics. So on the S&P 500, the largest companies in the United States, you can actually look at graphs of the longevity, like how long what is the age of the companies on the S&P, and just look at the stats, right? So in the 1960s, you're seeing, wow, here we're close to, we're close to 60%, right? Like 60 years, 50 years, like these companies have been around for as long as your career, right? No problem. And then later you can see, oh, it starts to transition, 1970s, we're starting to get towards like around the 30-year, and then now we're moving to 20 years. And then now at the end, by 2015 to 2020, we're talking probably less than 20 years. Some of them even getting close to 15 years. That is a big, big shift. And that is exactly what you are seeing in the industry. So what this means is that you're going to experience that shift. You're going to be experiencing technology shift probably, like, let's say you work for, I don't know, 30 years, 20 years, you probably see at least two, maybe even three technology shifts in your career, right? So this will happen to everyone. And I think that this is a really important lesson. And it's something that I wanted to share with you. And let me just say that, like, really I'm here, right? So to make sure that we get these new strategies and new ideas out there as quickly as possible. So you probably want to hear those three strategies for technology shifts. Are you ready? So there are going to be three different strategies that I'm going to cover today. They're going to be, and I'll cover them one at a time, and I'll tell you a little bit of a story as we go. So the three secret strategies in a technology shift. The first is to talk a little bit about why the first thing to think about is, why doesn't copying what other people do work? Like, why can't I just go and just do what other people did? So I want to tell you a story that I was recently in Halifax. And in Halifax, we got to visit the Citadel, and that's like a very famous destination. It used to be like kind of like a military barracks. And on occasion, they'll actually have demonstrations. These are like military exercises that they used to do in the like kind of late 1800s, early 1900s, and they still do today, mostly just for performance purposes. And so, why am I talking about this? Because there is a technology shift that happened. So check this out. So this is your scene. Let's see if I can get this started. So this is how things are typically laid out. Back in the day, like people had muskets for guns, and this was the way. Oops, this is the way that people would share. Okay, this is the way that you would have rapid fire for guns. So you would have a bunch of people lined up. Come on, where are we? Yes. And essentially, you would fire in sequence. So you had like one person firing first. Come on. One person firing first, and then another person firing, then another, because it takes like forever to load. They had to like load all of their guns manually. And so you can see the benefit of and the innovation of this method was not in the technology itself, it was in the formation. You can see how like every individual is shoulder to shoulder, right? They're really, really close to each other. And that formation means that this becomes a very lethal fighting machine. Essentially, you can shoot one at a time, kind of almost have like continuous fire like a machine gun back in a day when we hadn't invented machine guns. And this was a very strong innovation at the time. And I want to say that, like, what is like technology? To me, technology is just really it's service. And write this down. This is really important. Service at scale. That's all it is. Right? It's something that you do. Like I once spoke with the chairman of a nursing home or a series of nursing homes. And I asked him, like, well, what is that thing that you have that is unique, like the thing that makes you stand out against the rest? And the thing he told me was that, oh, it's our way of delivering service. We are able, using our model, to deliver more nursing service for seniors in this nursing home for less cost. And we're able to have much better retention of our nurses. And I was like, wow, there it is. The innovation is not in the technology. The innovation was in their organization of people. And so that is service at scale. That is a technology. Even though we wouldn't think of it, like you think of tech as, oh, it's restricted to only what we define as like technology, like having a smartphone or something. No, that is like technology is and always has been this notion of service at scale, and it is the thing that changes. It changes our world. It changes like borders. It changes cultures. It changes everything. And I think that's why I focus so much on tech and creativity on tech, because that's your competitive advantage. Companies that say, oh, we have a unique sales what you have is a tech. You do like it's not just a unique sales proposition. You have a technology. You have a way of delivering service at scale, but that technology can always get interrupted, right? So you go from this model of every individual is shoulder to shoulder, right? So that one person can fire. I'm going to switch to red. One person can fire, and then when that person is reloading, the next person can fire, and then the next person can fire. So each person can fire their gun in sequence while the other person is reloading. It was a very, very powerful technique. But then what happens when you introduce a new technology that is mainly like machine guns or repeating fire weapons? So when you have that, you have one individual, right, who can fire multiple rounds all at the same time, right? So they can shoot like 10 rounds, 20 rounds, like in a rapid sequence. Then this new technology of the machine gun essentially makes the old technology irrelevant. So this is not a new thing. This is something that has happened over time. So what can you do in that situation? Now, you could think like maybe my strategy as an organization, corporation, is to just copy, right? Like I will go and try and make my own machine gun. Of course, that's a great strategy. Or is it? No, it's absolutely a terrible strategy, right? Like, because what's going to happen is this organization that has already invented the technology is going to have a roadmap. They're going to figure out ways of either reducing the cost over time or increasing the quality of the product. And that is going to mess with your ability to catch up. You are always going to be playing catch up. And I remember, like, you've seen this story before. BlackBerry at their time, and I think I've spoken on this topic before. They had the Crackberry. I mean, it was so popular, right? Like it had a keyboard and a little dot thing. Like it was so popular. People loved the device. And the company decided, we're going to invest our time. People are starting to move towards tablets. So we're going to invest the whole company on catching up on tablets. But that's a really bad strategy because essentially by the time you've created a tablet, it's going to be like years behind where Apple was at the time. That it wasn't a strategy that would work. So what can you do? And then that relates to the first secret. The first secret is to reveal. Reveal, don't just identify, this is not written well. Reveal. So the strategy number one is to reveal the problem, but not just the problem. So don't just identify the problem, but look at the fundamentals of that new technology and think about where it's going to go next. That is, reveal the roadmap, right? So you want to know, where is it going to go? Where's the strategy going to move to? And that's really important, right? Being able to reveal the roadmap. Because once you know that catching up is not a strategy that is going to work for your new technology. And when you've revealed the roadmap, there's a few things that you can do, right? There's different ways, there are different paths that any organization or company can take. So one is to niche down. There's riches in niches. You've heard that phrase, niches, niche down, right? So what that means is essentially in your niche, you're going to deliver higher quality for your niche audience. That could be a service that only people in that niche really care about. It could be just luxury branding and positioning. So how you separate yourself, maybe you have better quality materials, for example. That can be a way of separating yourself from the market. The other is price. You can definitely compete on price and quantity. All you could need to do potentially is just offer more or sell more of the product at the same time, right? So that's one way of doing it. You could sell it at a lower price, or you could sell it at a higher quantity. Like Costco doesn't need to innovate to create some brand new product that nobody else has got. All they have to do is just sell more. So they go, okay, instead of buying one pack of these, you're going to get 5. And we're going to give you a discount because it's cheaper when you buy at a higher quantity. Very straightforward. And then the next is what I call like accelerate. When you accelerate when you find a technology, maybe it's not as good. And this is something that you'll find inside, which book is it? Yes, Crossing the Chasm. Like the classic Gordon Moore book about innovation and disruption, is that you want a technology that today isn't as good. This is a long-term strategy, but is accelerating at a faster pace than the current technology. So you know how fast the current technology is improving, and you go, well, that's one way of doing it. But what about if I use this totally different method? And over time, maybe it's not as good, but maybe over time it's going to be way more efficient, way more effective. And you won't need like some big, heavy tripod mounted equipment or something in order to do the same, to have the same effect. And so that is acceleration. Okay, so that is your roadmap for accelerating the performance. And the classic example, which I like to refer to, is the Apple M1. So you've got two different curves, right? So you have like innovation kind of goes like this. It goes up and it accelerates really, really fast. And then it kind of teeters off over time. It takes a lot of effort for you to make improvements. But at the beginning, you have this like hockey stick growth of improvement. Okay. And the new technology, the key with the new technology is that it's going to come in, it's going to make a major disruption, not at the beginning, because its performance is going to be worse, right? It's going to go something like this. It's going to start off maybe even like potentially at the same level or a little bit lower, but it's going to accelerate faster. And then it's going to overcome that curve. And so what this means is that you're looking for, like the classic technology would be ARM technology, I don't know, RISC processors, reduced instruction set versus complex instruction set computing, right? So these are like your Intel, the example would be like your M1 versus your Intel, what is it, i9 core, I'll just call it like i9, right? So you've got this technology curve where they're constantly improving and they're improving fast, right? And so eventually they're going to reach the same level of performance as the i9, and the i9, that complex instruction set, isn't going to be able to improve. And so they're going to get beaten in terms of price, in terms of quality, but not right away. This could take 10 years, it could take 5 years, but this is a long-term strategy to build a type of differentiator that is long-lasting. So crossing the chasm, Gordon Moore, it's pretty classic. So it's a way that a lot of companies use. So I hope that one makes sense. That is strategy number one. So it's reveal the roadmap, right? Reveal the roadmap. So the next one is to the second strategy. And again, I want to make sure to see if I've got this. Look, I'm here. I'm live. If you guys want to ask any questions or if you have any comments, just pop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And once again, thank you to everyone who is joining today. Like I said, I'm just a geek kid who's shown a little bit of forgiveness from his grade 7 French teacher. And this topic is very interesting to me because I experienced disruption a few times in my own career. And the strategies that I saw used didn't work, right? Which was mostly to catch up with where the competitors were, or to bet the whole company on one new strategy. And I thought about it and I thought, well, why did these types of strategies used by really big companies fail over and over and over again? And to me, what it lacked, which is my second point, is what it lacked was research. And what do I mean by research? So maybe this is secret number 2, is research. Okay, research is super important, but not just like, oh, just do a bunch of research papers. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? Because you're trying to identify different potential solutions at a small scale. It can be really foolish to bet the entire organization, just assuming that you're going to have success in whatever you do. Like that's often the almost guaranteed method for failure. So you've got to have different strategies that you can test quickly. And so what are ways that you can test many different strategies quickly? And so to do that, I would refer you to a few different books on this topic. And I think that one of the strategies that I love a lot actually, is the Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. So 0 to 1. Maybe 0 to 1. Okay, great strategy. 0 to 1. What it really means is you don't really have a product until you've had your first sale. So go and get that first sale, whatever it takes. Like you don't even have the product. Like for example, Zappos, when they first created their product, what did they do? All they did is just had a web page and said, okay, you can order some shoes. Some dude would manually fill out that order for you in order to find out what is the market, what kind of policies do I need, what is the business model that's required, because you're testing a business model. You're testing a technology. How do I provide service at scale? What are people willing to pay for? That's a super important question that you want to ask as early as possible before you start investing a ton of money on technology development, coding, etc. Like, this is very expensive, very risky. If you can answer that question before, you're going to be very, very beneficial. So the hardest thing is not creating a prototype. The hardest thing is, of course, getting that first sale and knowing, okay, so if I start pouring way more money into it, that's easy. Like, that's easy to know. I've already got a success on my hands. That's straightforward. But really, to do this, 0 to 1 focuses on startups, right? So the startup is all about the reducing the cost of that experiment. And so you want it to be like, how can I do this? So I've seen like organizations which used it like a product research document. So you have something quick. I need how much resource, how much time do you need to do it? And then you get time to do it. And I've also seen companies do like 10% time, or they have like 1 day a week, which is focused on innovation. Those are all strategies that are very similar to the 0 to 1. But I think that you do need to put some serious effort on it. And sometimes it's hard to just do it as a side project. So it's beneficial if you can spend a little bit more effort on your 0 to 1 efforts. But keep them short. Like, measure how much time did it take. How, like, is there any way I can reduce it? Because this is a process you want to have that is continually improving. Another method is people use hackathons. Hackathons are a great way because everybody's doing stuff at the same time, so they're excited about the new innovation. And that can spur a lot more creativity, bring a lot more ideas. You see other people who are your peers. And that's a really key thing. Like, when they started developing automatic machine guns, I'm going to go back to this strategy. When they started developing automatic machine guns, this meant that people had to be spread out. The new strategy was you have each soldier very far spaced out, so that if machine gun hits, it'll only hit one person. But the problem with this is that there were studies in the military that were done that showed that these individual soldiers did not fire 80% of the time. 80% of the time, they would not fire their guns. And so they realized that actually one of the biggest challenges was switching to this new strategy wasn't actually beneficial. And if they could change the development from actually one person to two people close together, they would get a much higher fire rate, a much higher like force multiplier for their organization. And so it was that person. And just think about that, right? Like, it is the way that you organize, like having people together is very important, right? And that's what a hackathon is. It's just getting people together on a common innovation. If I get you to innovate on your own, what's going to happen? Is that really going to work? Probably not, right? Like, innovation doesn't exist. Creativity doesn't exist in a vacuum. You need to have a team. You need to have other people who can, one, keep you accountable, two, bring in other perspectives and ideas. That's key. So you really need a different approach for the 0 to 1. It doesn't work to just have a single individual. And so make it a team, but the smallest team possible. So the other approach is, if you have something that, let's say, is starting to see legs, you're starting to get sales, and you're starting to think, man, this is really good. This is a good organization. I should probably scale this approach. The recommendation that I have is use the how Stella saved the farm approach. So Stella saved the farm. I'm just going to write down farm, right? So how Stella saved the farm is a concept of splitting your organization without sacrificing your main product. And this is the thing that I found a lot of companies have done and have failed at, is that they bet the whole company on this new idea. They go, yep, this new idea is going to generate $100 million, and we're going to bet the whole organization. It's going to make like 5 times the revenue. We're going to bet the whole organization on it. This is a very dangerous strategy, because it means that your current competitive advantage is going to be lost. Eventually, people like you can imagine on a like acceleration, an improvement curve, you're literally going to stop. You're going to like hard stop any new improvements. And what you're going to do is you're going to allow all of these other people to catch up to where you are. They don't even need to really innovate. All they need to do is just like do what you do and find a way to do it cheaper. And then you're going to be effectively just competing on price. And that's a terrible, terrible place to be. And so the Stella saves the farm or strategy is really just split your organization into two. So you're going to have your main driver of the company. That's still going to be there. It's still going to run. You still need a team that's dedicated towards that. And then you're going to have an innovation arm. So a specific and like group of people that are going to start the development. They're going to have marketing people. They're going to have their whole team. It's going to be like a different company inside the company. And that way you can push this one as hard as it needs in order to succeed without having all of the larger like innovation and processes that exist in the larger organization, which need to be there in order to have the quality of the larger organization. So don't lose it. So this is a way like, so for example, if BlackBerry had used this strategy, their outcome would have been totally different. So for example, instead of saying, okay, we don't care about BlackBerry. No, there would be a team that would still continue to innovate, that would still continue to make improvements. And then you would have another team working on new touch technologies or new phones or like new innovations that would potentially make even like a touch phone like the iPhone irrelevant. But that was something that didn't happen. And so you can see the difference that something like that would make. And then the last strategy in here for the secret is to acquire, right? Because let's be honest, it is very difficult to innovate, come up with something when you've been thinking a particular way for a very long period of time. Most companies, especially large organizations, that's not what they do. They just go out and they look for different skill sets that can benefit from the integration with their current solution. So they look for somebody which has like a organization that has completely different set of skills that they believe could really benefit them. They do the work to integrate that into their main product in order to drive more value on the existing product. And of course, you've got to be constantly doing this. It doesn't even matter if you are like currently the market leader. This is absolutely still required because if you don't innovate, somebody else is going to. Somebody else is going to do all of this work on your behalf, and then you're going to find yourself holding the bag. Like, what can I do? And that's something that I find very interesting. Like a company like Apple, even though they're a market leader in many of their areas that they compete in, they continue to look at, well, what is the thing that would really change the game here? What would somebody do to interrupt us that would cause a lot of trouble? Okay, what if somebody got like really great battery life and then suddenly everybody starts moving towards them? Okay, we've got to create that disruption. How can we do that? So this innovation strategy is a continuous thing. It is not something that you just do when there's an emergency. Often when there is an emergency, it's too late. And a lot of that responsibility falls upon the leader that they didn't plan. They kind of thought that, oh, I could just sit back and enjoy this gravy train forever. That's not how the world works. Things are changing. Like I showed you, why are companies staying at the top of the S&P for less and less years, from 60 years all the way to 10, 15 years? Well, the reason is because that pace of innovation is accelerating. We have technology that just makes innovation so much easier. We have an internet where you can just generate a ton of sales in a very short period of time. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm here to answer any questions. So if you have anything that you want me to cover, that was fun. Make sure you just post a question or you post a comment. I'll be here to answer that as well. Okay, so the last strategy that I want to talk about, and this is interesting. I hope that this has been, this is kind of an interesting aspect, because when you're talking about responding, and I was referring to that story of the the nursing home, which talked about how they organized their people. That was a very strong innovation in technology. That was a strong technology because they had a way of scaling service in a way that was more cost effective than everything else that was out there. And so the next strategy is, once you've got something that you think is really going to work and you're going to push the entire organization forward, there's the three R's. And so the third one is reorganize. Reorganize. And what I mean by reorganize, because people hear this all the time, like we're going to reorg, it's about steering the ship in a different direction to adapt to change. That's what I refer to as reorganization. And just look at any organization. Really, you have to, when a big disruption comes, it kind of rocks you to your core, right? It makes you really go back to your MVPs, morals, values, principles, right? Like go back to your, maybe that's, I don't want to put that in. I'll just put why. Move into your why. Why did this company start in the first place? What is its core? What was its core morals that it wanted to do? What is the innovation that it wanted to bring to society? Make sure that you go back to that. And if you can go back to the core of its morals, its values, and its principles, then you have an opportunity to reinterpret the vision and mission of the company. So you go, well, in light of what's happening today, the world is changing. We cannot continue to do what we're doing, but the core of what we were trying to do is help people at scale using a particular type of technology. Now, that technology may not be relevant, but your target audience of helping people has not changed. Maybe you're going to help like a different niche of people. Maybe you're going to help a larger organization, or you're going to help more people by reducing the costs. You have to decide what that strategy is. And so you're going to reinterpret the vision and mission of your organization. And once you have that, really, it's not easy, right? Because you're talking about like a type of, what are we talking about here is a type of communication. Communicating, getting the message down to every level is so difficult. And that's why there's entire books written on this exact process. And so the one that I like to refer to is ADKAR. ADKAR is a great model. I have the book here. It's kind of one of my classics. Right? So how to implement successful change in our personal lives and professional careers. And ADKAR is short for awareness. Like, what is the basic thing? Is this the same? Like, this ADKAR model is very similar to sales, right? Like, essentially, do people have the awareness that what needs to be done, what direction you have, and that really boils down to what is your story like? Do they have the desire? And again, like if you don't have a strong like why, they don't have the desire, right? And so that's why I refer to the why being so important. Knowledge, right? So do they even know, well, what do I have to do in order to, like, how does their work even relate to what I'm talking about here? Do they have the ability? Do they need new types of training in order to move towards your goal and your vision? Or do you need to hire new people? Right? So ability, do you have the ability within org? Do I need to acquire an organization? Do I need to contract with somebody? That is your ability. Maybe you don't have the ability. You don't need to necessarily hire as much these days. You could, there's subcontracting, there's Fiverr, there's all sorts of different models for bringing in the abilities that you need. And then of course, reinforcement. And that reinforcement part is really key, because if you don't know what progress you're making, then it's not going to improve, right? You won't see improvement. And for that one, the classic that I love is measure what matters. Measure what matters. Okay, so measuring what matters is super important. In the John Doerr book, he refers to the metrics that were used at Google. They would figure out like there's one objective metric. We know that this is the thing that is going to make a huge difference for the company. If we just focus on this number, and it's always a number that you can measure over time, we know that we're making massive progress towards our goals. And a lot of companies would think, oh, okay, well, this is just like the revenue number. But I would argue that that's not a good number to use. Looking at how much money you're bringing in is a lag measure. It comes in after everything else has been achieved. And so you've got to know what is the lead measure, the thing that is going to cause like the more revenue. And so having that measure, so for example, in YouTube, the focus at one point was just watch time, right? Like watch time rules all. All we care about is you watch this video, you watch it for a long period of time. We promote that guy using the AI. We are going to make more money because we're going to show more ads. They weren't looking at just ad revenue. They were looking at how can we get more people on board to focus on this watch time metric. Watch time rules all. That was the strategy. And so you're measuring the thing that matters, and it's the lead measure. What is the thing that is generating your leads? What is generating more people, more customers, more eyeballs, more attention? And that has a lot to do with marketing. Like nowadays, we have a very measured marketing solutions that exist. Like you can just go and measure how well your website is doing. You can very easily measure how well your ads are doing. You can measure how many people clicked on things. So these types of metrics are what matters. You know, not just like how many people are buying my stuff, but how many people are signing up for my email list? How many people are watching those videos? Those are the metrics that matter. And you don't have those metrics, the lead metrics, you won't have the lag metrics. And so that's why it's so important to measure what matters. And this is a philosophy that I've learned and I stick to a lot, is make sure that you've got, like when you reorganize, make sure that they have the skills that they need. Make sure that that they know what kind of what are you going to be reinforcing, right? So if you're going to be reinforcing something, what is it that needs to be reinforced? And so I hope that makes sense. In summary, I'm going to give you the 3 R's of the 3 secrets. So I hope you caught that. The first, secret number 1, was to, here it is, was to reveal the roadmap. What you care about is not where the product is today. Doesn't matter, right? Because if you hit the roadmap, if you can kind of predict where things are going to go, you're going to have a much better strategy, because everything takes time. It could take years before you actually get to that point. So make sure that you've got a clear roadmap. Strategy secret number 2 is to research. Research the solutions. Do the 0 to 1 approach. Find out ways that you can quickly get to the answer of, does anybody care about this service? Will people pay for it? You need to be able to answer that question quickly. And if the answer is no, then you've got to be able to move on to the next thing. If you get stuck on one idea that's already failing, you just keep pouring money into it, it is not going to make you more money. So this is the research experiment is the 0 to 1, right? So trying to figure out, research, what is it that people actually want? You're doing a whole new business, right? So this is a business research. Right? You're improving the outcomes of your business, and you're trying to figure out if people will still buy from you. It could be you even create exactly what the other companies provide. Nobody buys from you because they don't trust you. Your brand means nothing to people when it comes to this new technology. So you're in the wrong space. You shouldn't be working there. You should already be like getting the answer that you should be moving in a different direction. And then the third very important strategy is to reorg around this new strategy, right? So make sure that people know, reorg, not the people, but reorganize your why, right? Go back to the why and figure out how everything builds from that. Why did you create the company? Where did this company start? Maybe you didn't create the company, right? Like, what was the origins? What's the history? This is so important. When the it's funny, like, I when I was in Mexico, um, like, speaking, it we visited the museums there, and they shared some artifacts of, like, the Aztecs taking over, like, ruling the Toltecs. And what's the first thing that they did when they took over that organization? The first thing that they did was dig up all of the old burial sites of the Toltecs, and to show examples of how they're really the same people. They're really, like, these new things that they wanted to push are exactly the same as the old things that they had been used to and had been doing, because people are going to resist new. They're going to resist, like, this isn't us, like, we can't do this. And if you can connect it very clearly to why this organization was started in the first place, you've got a strong story. People now, they have, like, awareness of why you're doing what you're doing. They have a desire to actually follow that direction, and they have the knowledge of, oh, this is where I need to be. This is how I can help the organization. It's not about telling people what to do. It's more about telling a story of what your vision was to begin with, and realizing that helping people, yeah, that's going to change the way that we do that, but the core of your morals and your values and your principles doesn't change. It doesn't change over time. And so reorganize your why and make it easy for them to perceive and understand the story. Um, yeah, I love that example from, like, I don't know if you've heard this one, like, Cisco. They had a story that they used to talk about innovation at that company, where one night there was a employee who was doing a massive demonstration, big demonstration for the company. And he needed a component. And the reality was, like, there was nothing around. There was no prototypes. There's nothing he could use. And so what he did is he snuck into the server room of the company, and he stole. He stole the piece of equipment. Let's say it's a router or something, in order to use it for the demonstration. And later, when, of course, the higher ups had found, like, why is stuff not working today? It's like, oh, it's because, like, this employee, whoever it is, like, stole equipment from our company in order to do the demonstration. And that became, like, the mantra. It became, like, our why. It's like, we care about our customers so much, we will steal from our own company in order to better serve our customers. And so it showed, like, a kind of core value of the company that others could align with, that they could see. And that's what I want for you, is to know your why. Reorganize not just the people, but reorganize your why, so that when there is the change, people have a clear direction. I see this all the time. Like, people see a change, like, oh, we're just reorging, but why? What is the purpose around this? And I've heard phrases like, oh, well, we're just changing because change is good. We should be changing all the time. And it is good, but it has to be more than just because change is good, right? It has to be with some purpose, with some reason, some direction. And that's what people often lack, is some kind of change here. And like, I will also comment that when we're talking about reorganizing, sometimes that reorganization, it starts at the top. I am on the board of an organization where, they wanted me to stay on as the chair of the board, and my message to them was, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea. Like, innovation really only happens when we start building up people. There's, like, a direction, there's a movement. And that starts, like, if the person at the very top is not moving, right? If they get stuck, for example, then your organization just stops growing, stops innovating. And the innovation that usually has to start from the top, right? It starts, like, with, you have replace the CEO, then, like, the person behind can kind of slowly move up. You can see movement in the organization. But what a lot of organizations do is they just, like axe the CEO, the entire org stays exactly the same, and then they helicopter in a new CEO. And so nothing changes in terms of the hierarchy, like no innovation, no growth actually occurs in the organization. And you wonder, oh, how come that didn't work? Like, what was going on? How come we couldn't actually cause innovation just by changing out the CEO? That's exactly why. It's like you didn't change anything. You just changed like who was at the very top, but you kept everything else the same. And their motivation is going to be to keep everything the same, right? And so that's not going to work. That is why we have so many troubles. Like organizations, like they fail to compete because they cannot see this kind of shift occurring. Okay, does that make sense? Those are the three. Yes, I hope so. So yeah, I have a massive passion for those who want to have an impact on their society, on the world, and that's why I do. You see, like I come to empower these influencers. It could be in business. It could be like in it could be in just any organization, like even volunteer organizations, by treating technology as their competitive advantage, right? It's not just this, oh, this fun thing, oh, this like tech, it's kind of like a toy. It's like everything is a toy, right? I mean, social media was a toy until it became not a toy and became this essential tool that we now need to get a job. And so we need to be paying very close attention to this technology. And I talk about sometimes we get into this rut where we just kind of say, oh, this is the new stuff. We're not going to touch the new stuff. We effectively put ourselves into what I call a creative prison. And so creative prison is where it's a prison of our own doing. Basically, it says that we have decided I'm not a technology person. Essentially is very similar to just saying, oh, I've just refused to be creative with some of the newer technology that is available today. And so you'll see improvements all the time. You're going to see massive disruption in your careers. And the only way to really be ahead of that is to be the ones involved in creating that disruption. And so that means accepting the technology, accepting that you're learning it just like everyone else is learning it. Like I'm learning this metaverse live streaming cinematography thing just like everybody else who is doing it as well. Like you look at all of the new corporate presentations, what are they? They're metaverse live streams. Every single one of them. They are using some kind of virtual background. They are using different types of cinematography techniques in order to convey an emotional message through the use of cinematography. So these are not just like, oh, it's some cool tech and people are playing with a gimbal or whatever. It's like, no, this is starting to become serious business. The people at the very top of the innovation ladder are starting to use this technique. You better be on top of that. Your organization better be on top of more camera presence and understanding how to properly use the camera when you're doing live streaming in order to be on top of your game. And if we don't do this, what's going to happen is we're really going to find ourselves falling behind, but not necessarily right away. We find that other people just start catching up and we start going, oh, that I wasn't expecting that. We start getting surprised or blindsided by all these innovations because the innovation doesn't stop just because your organization isn't doing it. But you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that if you're directly involved. Like if you are outside of the creative prison, you have the humility to know that you're going to either disrupt your own business or someone is going to disrupt it for you. And if you are serious about moving towards this, I would really encourage you to reach out to me directly. Just write something in the chat. Let me know. Like you see this stuff all the time, right? Like it's interesting. People are always saying, oh, okay, I'm going to bring this one up. Buy followers, primes, or whatever, or viewers on some store. And like why doesn't that work? Why do those methods not work? Why can't I just go and pay a bunch? It's like you gotta start to understand the fundamentals of social media and how marketing is done. It's not done that way, right? We care about people. We want to deliver services. We want to help you to a higher degree. So what I encourage you is go to my site. You can either go to aiparenting.live. That's a great place to check it out. That's just my site. And you'll find that these kinds of things happen all the time. There's new innovations. Things are changing all the time. And this will help you get prepared. Those 3 strategies. So that's my time. Those are 3 technology shift strategies that I've seen really work in my industry and in others and have been well documented, but not enough companies actually do in practice. And this all comes from a reminder that when I was in the Citadel, like technology shifts happen all the time. And those people who get left behind, they are essentially going to be destroyed by the people who do embrace the technology and do think about it in different ways. Not necessarily about inventing a new technology, but just figuring out different ways of using it that haven't been considered. And I think that that's the key, is that innovation is always happening. It could be on the people side, it could be on the actual tech side, like the nuts and bolts, the programming, the code. But really, it's happening all the time. And it's always that combination of the two. And that's why I do what I do. My experience is the combination of artificial intelligence and user experience, because really those two is delivering service at scale, at massive scale. Technology is service at a massive scale. That's my time. I'm Dr. Ed. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time.